Last night, my family and I were watching TV, as we do, and just relaxing, getting ready for bed, and just enjoying our time together. Then I got a phone call from someone who was a friend from college, and a friend of mine and a friend of my wife's. Well, I answer the phone, and she says this: "Hey, Landon, my daughter and I are going through a Bible study together, and I wanted to know if you could answer a question." And this daughter, who is 10, about to be 11 next month, so put that on your calendar, she had this incredibly insightful question. So I thought I would go ahead and share the context of that with you today as our devotional. But sometimes what happens is people will contact me, or they'll text me, or they'll call me, or whatever the contact, and they'll say, "Hey, something I've been reflecting on, or something I have been really wondering about. How can this be when this is what the Bible says? Or how come the Bible says this, but it also says this?" And if you're looking at it on a surface level, it might look a little contradictory in some ways. But we know that the Bible does not contradict itself if we look into the context of history, of what was being said, of who it was being said to, and all of those things that I've talked about in the past. So this little girl gets on the speakerphone and she says, "Pastor Landon, I know the Bible says that the heart is deceitful, but it also says in Psalms that we will follow God with all of our hearts." She goes, "Can you explain how that can be? If the heart is deceitful, why would we follow God with all of our hearts?" Well, I didn't have time to pull out seminary texts and talk about the origin of that word heart and what it meant back then and all those kind of things. But I wanted to read you what she was referring to first in Jeremiah. And maybe you've had this question too. And you're not 10 years old, I get that, and not about to be 11. But maybe it's something that you've thought about and something that will spur your imagination a little bit. So, we're in Jeremiah, and we are in chapter 17, and this is what she was referring to. In verse 9 it says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" But then Jeremiah, the prophet, goes on to say this: "I, the Lord," and he's speaking on behalf of God, God is speaking through him, "I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve." Okay, so the answer I gave, and you can tell me whether this is good, bad, or indifferent. Yes, our heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure, just like it says in Jeremiah. That is the natural, and I'm going to speak a little bit more adult language with you, our natural bent and tendency. So because of this concept of original sin, because of this, what we are tempted to go towards and what direction we are tempted to lean towards, our heart is deceitful. So when someone tells me, I just felt it in my heart, or I'm following my heart, that's a horrible idea, unless your heart has been given fully over to God's control. You see that connection where I'm going with this? In Psalm it says that we're called to love God with all of our heart, and what she was specifically quoting, and I can't remember the exact quote here, but that was the context and the gist of it. But we cannot, under our own power, under our own authority, under our own tendencies, just decide that our heart is pure and that's what it is. But God says that if He has control, then, and if we've given it over to Him, then that heart can now be filled with love and purity and can have a brand new direction. So, where are you at in your life? Are you still holding on to unforgiveness, to something that is carrying you down into the pit? Do you have something that you need to confess? Do you have something you need to do that you've just really needed to do? Are you holding a grudge that you really shouldn't be holding? Do you think if you were to ask God today, hey God, should I just stay unforgiving and should I hold a grudge against this person? We all know what the answer to that would be. So why are we doing it? It's easier said than done, isn't it? Follow God today. Give him all your heart.